So you're playing Genshin, you're doing some 10 pulls on the current banner, and you get 5-star Navia. Now, what do you get with Navia besides one of the best on-field Geo DPSs that has ever came out? Well, Navia is going to be a Claymore-wielding Geo user. I'm moving my background. Navia is going to be a Claymore-wielding Geo user who does a lot of damage through her skill. And in this video, we're going to look at the basics of Navia, how said skill works, as well as how her burst helps you use her skill more often. So we are first going to look at the current build of the current Navia that we are using. My Navia is level 80 with 19,256 HP, attack 19,026. EM, we're not actually worried about on her. Crit split 53 over 179 with 135 ER and a Geo Goblet. For weapons, I am running a level 80 R1 Serpent Spine. For artifacts, Nighttime Whispers. She is C0 and her talents are 166. Now, real quick, we are going to look at her passives. Her first passive. For 4 seconds after using her skill, her normal charge or plunging attacks are all going to be Geo infused. Can't be overridden, so you can work with, so this will work with C6 Benny, and it will also increase the damage of these normal charging or plunging attacks as well. Her second passive, for each different element in the party, she gains a 20% increase to her attack with a maximum of 2 times. So the team that we're actually using is Navia, Ningi, Farina, and Bennett. Because they are Hydro and Pyro, we are going to get that 40% attack increase due to her passive. So now let's go look at how her entire kit works. Now we are going to be using the domain for Nighttime Whispers because of something to do with her skill, but we're not quite there yet. So let's look at her normal attacks and her charged attacks. Her normal attacks are going to be normal. They are going to do physical damage. Her last swing, pulling out the umbrella or the gunbrella, I really like it. And then her charge attack is going to be the Beyblade version of that. Now for her skill. Her skill is going to have a tap and a hold, and they're relatively going to do the same thing. Her hold lets you aim it, as well as having another secondary effect. But her skill is going to pull out her gunbrella, and she is going to fire off Geo, kind of like a shotgun, but Geo, right? Now, Navia also has a stacking mechanism. You notice right beside her right now, there is a bullet-shaped icon that can go up to 6 stacks. So if we hit her skill again, we get the Geo infusion, and you're going to notice that as we're hitting these enemies, we are going to be creating Geo shards. As we pick up the Geo shards, the stacking mechanism behind or beside Navia is going to get bigger. If we then use her skill again, it is going to do more damage. The more of these stacks that she has, the more damage she is going to do. The hold version of this also gives you an ability to aim, but it also sucks in or kind of attracts the Geo shards to Navia, just as you saw there. So any character can pick up these Geo shards, any of your characters, any body on your party can pick them up, and it will start to give stacks to Navia, or you can hold down her skill and it's going to suck these Geo shards in. So you need to make sure that you have a way to produce Geo shards, right? That's another reason why we're running Farina and Benny and not doing like a mono Geo team. Not only because of the passive, but we have to make these shards. Because like I said, the more shards that you collect, the more her skill is going to do damage, which is where her big damage comes from. Which is why it's also good to run a second Geo character to help produce some of those shards. Ningguang's actually really good at creating these shards. Now we're going to look at her burst. Her burst is going to have this wonderful animation, and it is going to rain down Geo gunfire, kind of in a way, like cannon fire, and it is going to hit the enemy. Now, every, I think it's 2.5 seconds, 2.4 seconds, something like that, that her burst hits an enemy, she is going to gain a charge, even if it doesn't create a Geo shard. So using her burst, you can build up her charge for her skill, even if it is not creating Geo shards. So you can use her burst and create Geo shards to get her skill up, or her skill damage up. Also notice that her skill does have 2 charges. You can use the first one, have the Geo infusion that follows after it, and then do your normal attacks to produce some shards, but it's kind of wasting a little bit of her skill damage, so that's why we want to run a second Geo character like Ningguang to help produce those shards, or that's also why it's really good to have energy recharge on Navia, so that way you can use her burst pretty often to increase the amount of charges that you have on Navia. That is another reason why we came into this domain specifically, because we have the elemental slimes, which make it super easy to create shards to showcase off. Navia skill. This domain is 100% built to allow Navia to come in here and run this domain and do a fair good amount of damage. Let her farm her own artifacts, as it were. So now we are going to look at artifacts for Navia. So for an early or beginner game, I'm going to say 2-piece Gambler, which gets up your skill damage, and then 2-piece of either exile or attack percent, so that you can use her burst more often or get higher attack. You can use 4-piece Gambler, but the skill reset isn't as big of a deal as I think attack or energy recharge would be, right? For the main stats, it's going to be relatively simple: attack percent, geo damage bonus, and then crit rate or crit damage circlet. Obviously, these are really, really bad artifacts, so get some better ones than I have. For the weapon, of course, we do have Serpent Spine, which she was using in this video, which is a really good weapon. It does get up crit rate, but it's also a battle pass weapon, so it is accessible to anybody that pays for the battle pass. Outside of the battle pass weapons, we do have a couple of other options. We do have the cardboard claymore from the event in Fontaine if you were playing at the time. This one can be really, really good because it gets up energy recharge, which is great, but it also is going to get up 48% attack with it being R5 if you finished all of the Melusine quests. So this is going to get up ER, which is great, and attack. If you have lost some of your 50/50s and you have Wolf's Gravestone, this weapon can also be really, really good on Navia, because again, it's just going to get her attack up super, super high. I do think, though, if you can get a crit weapon on her, that is going to be better, like Serpent Spine. Now, if you are looking for a 100% free-to-play option, you do, of course, have the craftable Fontaine Claymore, which is going to get up attack percent, and then it's going to get it up even further once you've been healed. So just make sure that you run her with a healer like Benny. Benny works really, really well with Navia. Now, we're going to talk more about parties in the Artifact Grinding Hell video, but I do want to say that running a second Geo character is good for Geo Resonance, but it also helps produce shards, which we talked about. Farina and Benny can work really, really well together with Navia for the buff aspect. You just have to make sure that you have either enough elemental application from your other characters to create these Geo shards, or have enough energy recharge on Navia to use her burst to allow you to build the stacks that way. There is a balance that you need to try and find. Something else that I want to do, I want to show how the stacking mechanic of her skill works. If we look right here, when 0, 1, 2, or 3 or more stacks of the crystal shrapnel are consumed, which is holding down her skill, that little stacking mechanism on the side, when they are consumed, it fires a certain amount of shard shots out. The more of these shard shots that hit a single opponent, the more damage it does. So it is kind of like a shotgun with how it's gonna shoot out individual shards, right? Think of like birdshot. When all 11 of them hit an enemy, it will do 200% of the original damage. So it is a really good way to increase it, right? When more than 3 stacks are consumed, right? So we have the first 3 stacks and then the icon gets bigger. When the icon gets bigger, every one of those biggers that we use will increase the damage by an additional 15% up to 45% at a fully charged skill. So make sure, that's why you really, really, really want to get as many stacks as possible, because you're going to be doing so much more damage through those stacks. Now, that is going to be it for this video. If you have any questions, you be sure to leave it down in the comments. Myself or someone else be sure to answer it, and I'll see you in the next one.